Okay, so our opponents have stated today that these voter ID laws are actually going to deny people access to voting, that they are, targeting specific groups of people. They've also made claims that there is no such thing as fraud, that fraud isn't happening, and if it is happening, it's really small amounts of things. So I'm going to address those topics for you guys today. According to a writer for CNN, he has got a lot to say about, the amount of voters that have been coming out in the states that have already implemented these voter ID laws, and or some sort of check to see if you're actually who you say you are. And one of the articles he wrote, his name is Brian Preston, he's a writer for CNN, he wrote, in terms of raw numbers, turnout in 2013 elections increased by about 63% over turnout in the 2011 elections that are comparable. So what that means is in 2011, this is before a lot of the voter ID laws were implemented across many of the states. In 2011, there were 63% less people in terms of raw numbers that went out to vote, even though there weren't any voter ID laws. Now there's voter ID laws, and now we've seen an increase in people going to vote. So when the opposition says that these are not allowing people to go, it's completely unfactual. There's plenty of people that are still voting. There's super easy ways to getting it. And so there's no reason why these laws prevent people from going to vote. That's not what these are about. These are about keeping the integrity of the voting process, not about denying people access. And they said that it targets specific peoples like African Americans and Hispanics. Well, Brian Preston also says, he goes on, he says, in Texas, one of the biggest places where they have the strictest photo ID laws, has come out, and he also said that, look at Cameron County, which is about 85% Hispanic. Turnout increased from an average of 4,700 voters in 2011 to 5,100 in 2013. So even though it's 90% Hispanic, and that's supposedly what these voter ID laws are targeting, and Texas has the strictest laws, they've actually seen a substantial increase in their amount of voter turnout. It's about 400 more people, instead of what the opposition is trying to say, where it's going to deny you a lot of people, or all these people are not going to be able to vote. It's just simply not true. Moreover, in the National Review website, this writer, John Fund, he says that when groups sue to block photo ID laws in court, they can't seem to produce any real-world examples of people who have actually been denied to vote. So the opposition might tell you, well, there's no real examples of fraud happening, which there are examples of fraud happening, but I would like to tell them, are there any examples of people who come up and say, wow, I have been denied my rights to vote in this place? And that's no. Most of these laws come equipped with fail-safes, and you can put in a provisional ballot if you don't actually have the right ID. They have forms there at the polling place, so you can take them home with you to then fill them out and get them for the next election, if that's something that you're actually caring about. Like my partner said, a lot of these people that do our voting are actually involved enough to know what you need to have before you can get there. They also have a lot of rules in there that say that even if you have an expired ID, you have 2 months to get that will still work. You have 2 months for that still to work, 60 days. And it takes about 4 weeks to get a new ID. So in that time frame of looking at your ID and saying, oh wow, it's expired, you're going to get your new ID before that one becomes invalid. So there's a lot of safeguards and fail-safes to make sure that they are not preventing anyone's constitutional right to go and vote. One of the last things that they said that fraud doesn't happen. Well, there's some pretty big examples of fraud actually happening, and this comes from Newsmax by writer Drew McKenzie. He says the inquiry also identifies 35,750 voters with matching names and dates of birth and last 4 social security numbers who voted in North Carolina and then subsequently other states that year. So that's 35,000 cases of people that have done this exact voter fraud, where if you had an ID that was from North Carolina, then you know, they couldn't go to another state and vote with their same North Carolina ID. You have to have that right state's ID. And sure, I guess they could get 2 IDs, but I think that there's, you know, the systems would talk to each other and say, whoa, wait a minute, this guy's actually, you know, registered in another place. So that's how you take care of that. One of the Senator Republicans heard about this and said to Fox News, he said, "We have The Walking Dead, it's a really popular show, and now you have the Voting Dead." He said to CNN, "It's become a really, really big pandemic, almost like a zombie apocalypse. We've got people coming out, rising up from the dead just to cast their vote again." They had about 60 people that who were dead before the election in his county alone, which is a very small county in Texas, that had voted even though they had died like 3 months prior. Now, there's no way that could happen with absentee ballots. You can't turn in an absentee ballot that long. So it's very much, the fraud is very much, it's real and it's happening. Not like the zombie apocalypse is, but definitely the fraud is happening. So thank you.
Good morning.